So Marsellos Wilder gets stopped in the fourth round by William Dietz. Wow, I didn't expect this to happen. Marsellos Wilder, I've actually spoken with Marsellos on Facebook several times. He's messaged me back to a couple of messages. Now that's going back about a year or two ago. But I've seen a few of Marsellos' fights. They're on YouTube. Excuse me. I've seen a few of Marsellos' fights. They're on YouTube, and he looks very, very raw, very sloppy. Marsellos, I believe, started boxing quite late. Even when Deontay Wilder was boxing, Marsellos wasn't boxing. I believe he only started in 2015, as in amateur boxing. Spent a lot of time training in amateur boxing, and then eventually turned pro. And he's 29 years old now. So he had a very, very limited run, and he was 3-0 going into this fight. William Dietz, who I believe was 6-12, real journeyman record going into this fight. Now there's no actual footage of this fight; it wasn't televised. I'm just reporting on this. Basically, Marsellos Wilder, from what I've seen, he doesn't appear to be as talented as Deontay, but he appears to have all the same flaws as Deontay does. If anything, he has more, because the few fights I've seen of him, he swings and windmills way more than Deontay Wilder. He's not as big. He's a cruiserweight / light heavyweight. I think more so kind of on the light heavyweight end of the spectrum. But he swings a lot more than Wilder. He windmills a lot more, he windmills a lot more than Deontay, I should say. He windmills a lot more than Deontay. He swings a lot more. Doesn't have the punching power of Deontay Wilder. Probably doesn't have the chin, to be fair, considering this, of Deontay Wilder, or the defense. But I have to ask questions about the gym they train in, Skyboxing Gym. Now, as far as I know, that's a pro gym. I find it very disturbing that you have Deontay Wilder still to this day with such poor technique, and his brother, who is just coming through and has even worse technique. I seriously have to question what goes on in that gym, because if you see that and you know that, fair enough, Deontay can get away with it, he has the power. Deontay's technique is all over the place. It really is. He's alright when he's fighting shorter guys. He can kind of keep a distance and stick the jab, but as soon as he gets a guy hurt, technique goes out the window. Marsellos seems to be kind of like that as well. Obviously, Marsellos, I think, is a lot more raw, so his technique is all over the place. But even Deontay Wilder early in his career, I don't think he was as sloppy as Marsellos is, just based on what I've seen. I have to ask serious questions about what goes on in that gym, the training methods that they teach their fighters, because I'm not going to name the gym, but I train in a professional boxing gym. I'm not a professional boxer myself, but the pros that are there, they're all taught the same kind of techniques. They all have very good techniques, and none of them, I've seen a few of the pros fight, none of them windmill. Now, most of the pros in that gym are I wouldn't say high level amateurs, but they've been, long amateur careers, and then they're boxing in Ireland, of course, and most of them are starting out, and they all have very, very good technique, and they're taught that way by the head trainer. He doesn't train all the fighters. I think they have another trainer who does that, but he trains some of them. And, I would love it maybe if I was ever to have a pro fight, I'd actually get trained by him myself, if I was ever to have a pro fight, which I'd love. But it shows the difference, and, that's a professional gym in Ireland, and this gym, Sky Gym is what I believe it's called, in Alabama. I have to ask questions about what goes on in that gym if their fighters have this bad technique. Now, that's just two fighters. I think there's other fighters in that gym who could be completely different. But, it's not a good sign when you have two fighters with such poor technique. I know one of them went on to become heavyweight champion of the world, which is all well and good, but based on his athleticism and based on his punching power rather than his technical ability. And Marsellos, where does he go from here? He's 29. He's got a very limited amateur experience. I really don't know what to say of it. I really don't know what to make of it. I didn't see this fight. Obviously, it's not televised, but it's not very good in your third or fourth pro fight to be getting stopped by a journeyman. It really isn't. And, Marsellos, they were saying he was to fight on the Eubank Jr., James DeGale undercard. I think that's probably going to be scrapped now. He has a month, but, I think that's probably going to get scrapped. I think I've always said, with people who have very limited amateur experience, I would always advocate that they need to be taken extra slow. So even if you have a journeyman who, for all intents and purposes, should be beaten, I still think you need to just build to that if you have such limited amateur experience. I'd be very much, if I was managing a fighter, I'd want to have, before they're even at a good, decent level, if they're not ready, don't push them too hard. And even though a William Dietz might not be seen as a hard push, if you're technically not ready, it's going to show up, and obviously it's shown up in this fight. So it's important, I think, to look at that and look at look at the gym you're in. I mean, look at the technique that they're teaching. You know, questions need to be asked of the trainers in that boxing gym, I believe. Now, I'm not in it. I don't know what the other fighters like. They could be perfectly fine technically, and this could be just a Wilder thing, but, you know, questions need to be asked, I think. So, anyway, those are my thoughts on this. I'm looking forward to the rest of the card. I'm looking forward to seeing Keith Thurman back in the ring tonight. Keith Thurman, one of my favourite welterweights at the minute, and I'll be hoping that we see one time and not, you know, jab time. So we get to see the old one time back. So anyway, those are my thoughts on this. Please leave your thoughts down below, and I'll talk to you after.